So this episode is basically a perfect example of why this sitcom became legendary. Every few minutes, something completely ridiculous happens, and somehow it all connects together through pure, awkward energy. Faced with tears of joy, the story kicks off when one of the guys secretly starts smoking again after trying so hard to quit. Of course, the second his friends notice, everyone reacts like they just discovered a national emergency. And instead of defending himself normally, he starts blaming his childhood trauma, his parents' divorce, and basically every emotional event from his life. Loudly crying face. What makes it funny is that nobody around him takes the explanation seriously at all. They're all just shocked that after surviving nicotine gum, support lectures, and constant pressure, he somehow still went back to smoking. But honestly, the real reason he smokes again becomes obvious later. Whenever things get stressful or emotional, he hides behind jokes and bad habits instead of dealing with feelings directly. That's basically his entire personality. And speaking of emotions, the group suddenly starts talking about crying. Now this turns into one of the funniest conversations in the episode because everybody shares emotional movie memories and heartbreaking stories, while this one guy proudly announces that he basically never cries. Ever. Faced with tears of joy. Naturally, his friends refuse to accept that. So now the entire apartment becomes a mission to emotionally destroy him. They start throwing every sad scenario possible at him. Injured puppies, childhood memories, abandoned pets, family trauma, emotional speeches. Nothing works. Every single emotional setup gets completely ruined because he turns it into another joke. At one point, someone describes a lonely three-legged puppy begging for help. And instead of crying, he gets excited because apparently finding a talking dog would make him rich. Loudly crying face. That line alone perfectly explains his brain. Then someone pulls out old childhood photographs, hoping that will finally break him emotionally. But instead of crying over sad memories, he casually points out that his parents skip school events so often that he barely noticed anymore. And suddenly the comedy gets weirdly dark for a second. That's honestly what makes these old sitcom episodes work so well. They mix humor with surprisingly real emotional issues without making it feel forced. But before anyone can process those feelings, the episode immediately shifts into another completely chaotic storyline. Faced with tears of joy, now everyone starts discussing relationships, dating disasters, and soulmates. One character becomes convinced that there's a perfect person out there for everyone. Another person thinks the whole soulmate idea is nonsense. And then chaos begins when somebody introduces a man who seems suspiciously perfect for someone else's girlfriend. Loudly crying face. The boyfriend instantly becomes insecure. And honestly, watching him slowly panic while pretending not to panic is hilarious. At first he acts calm and mature. But the second this new guy starts talking about food, restaurants, confidence, and sophisticated hobbies, you can literally see the jealousy building in real time. Faced with tears of joy, every conversation becomes competition. If a new guy likes cheese, suddenly cheese becomes a threat. If he cooks professionally, now cooking becomes suspicious. If he has confidence, now confidence is evil. Loudly crying face. And eventually the boyfriend reaches the point where he genuinely believes his girlfriend is about to leave him and move into some imaginary cheese house with this perfect stranger. Which honestly sounds insane out loud, but inside sitcom logic somehow makes complete sense. The best part is when the girlfriend finally explains that relationships are not about destiny or magical soulmates. They're about effort, patience, and choosing each other every day. And surprisingly, underneath all the jokes, that's actually one of the sweetest relationship moments in the entire series. But don't worry, the emotional maturity lasts about 30 seconds before the episode goes back into complete madness. Faced with tears of joy, because now we move into one of the most awkward photo sessions ever shown on television. The engaged couple decides to take professional pictures together. Sounds normal, right? Wrong. The second the camera appears, the guy's face completely stops functioning like a normal human face. Loudly crying face. Every photo looks absolutely terrifying. Instead of smiling naturally, he somehow looks like a hostage trying to secretly ask for help through facial expressions. And the more the photographer tells him to relax, the worse it gets. At one point, his fiancée literally asks him why his smile looks threatening. Faced with tears of joy. What makes the whole thing funnier is that whenever nobody is taking a picture, his smile looks perfectly normal. But the second the camera appears, his face transforms into pure nightmare fuel. Then another friend tries teaching him how actors fake natural smiles for headshots. The advice sounds simple. Look down, pause, then slowly look up. But somehow, even that becomes a disaster. Loudly crying face. Honestly, this entire storyline feels painfully relatable because almost everybody has taken at least one horrible photograph where their face suddenly forgot how being human works. And somehow the episode still isn't done embarrassing everybody yet. Faced with tears of joy. Because later we get another unbelievable storyline involving underwear, misunderstandings, and one of the most awkward situations imaginable. One character ends up trapped wearing women's underwear after a weird romantic situation goes completely wrong. Now, instead of solving the problem privately like a normal person, the entire friend group gathers around to make fun of him. Loudly crying face. And naturally, this turns into full public humiliation within seconds. Even worse, everybody becomes weirdly curious about it. One friend literally tries negotiating for another guy's underwear, while people casually insult each other in the background like this is a completely normal evening conversation. Faced with tears of joy. Honestly, the randomness of these conversations is exactly why the comedy works so well. No matter how ridiculous things become, the characters treat every insane situation with complete confidence. And then somehow the episode still finds time to include relationship fights, accidental emotional confessions, embarrassing family encounters, office disasters, and arguments about terrible jokes nobody even likes. Loudly crying face. There's literally one moment where two characters fight over who created the world's worst joke, only for someone else to interrupt and explain that both of them should actually be ashamed for bringing the joke into existence at all. Faced with tears of joy. That honestly summarizes the entire energy of the episode. Everybody is chaotic. Everybody is insecure. Everybody is emotionally unstable. And somehow they still love hanging around each other every single day. And that's really why this sitcom stayed popular for so many years. The comedy isn't just about punchlines. It's about personalities crashing into each other constantly. One person overreacts, another gets jealous, another hides emotions with humor, another creates drama for no reason, and together it somehow feels weirdly realistic. Even the smallest situations turn into full emotional disasters. A camera becomes a crisis. Cheese becomes relationship competition. A crying conversation becomes therapy. And underwear somehow becomes public discussion. Loudly crying face. That kind of character-based chaos is what made these episodes unforgettable. And honestly, every friend group probably has at least one person exactly like this.